So here in part 2, we're going to do some more work with fiscal policy. So remember, fiscal policy is the idea that we can use the government's budget to balance the economy without worrying about balancing the budget. Okay, so fiscal policy is the idea that we can use the government budget to balance the economy without worrying about balancing the budget. And basically what we're talking about here is we can run deficits, or we can run surpluses. Okay, and to run a deficit, there's two ways we can do that. We can obviously increase spending, or we can decrease taxes. Okay? If you want to run a deficit in your own life, right, today, there's two ways you can do it. You can either basically make less money, which is what decreasing taxes is doing in the government case, or you can spend more money, right? So if you increase your spending, you will run a deficit, right? Especially if you increase your spending beyond the level that you're taking in. Okay? Or if you just quit your job and make $0 per week or per paycheck and keep your spending the same, you will run a deficit. Okay? Alternatively, we can run surpluses. And here we can decrease spending or increase taxes. Okay? And this is saying if you want to run a surplus in your own house, you need to either spend less money or make more money, right? Same thing with the government. They make money, taxes are the money that they make, and so they can either make more money or they can spend less money. And if they do that, they'll run a surplus, okay? And what this is it's another form of aggregate demand management. Okay, so just like monetary policy managed aggregate demand, right, during times of booms and busts, depending on what we wanted to accomplish, so too can fiscal policy. The difference is that fiscal policy is controlled by the president and Congress. Okay, whereas monetary policy is done by the Fed. Okay, so the Federal Reserve controls monetary policy, the president and Congress control fiscal policy. Okay, now there are two types of fiscal policies. Okay, the first one is what we call discretionary. Okay, and this is any fiscal policy that is the result of a choice by Congress or the president. Okay, and so it's probably easiest to give you an example of this and show you. So in 2009, when President Obama announced the economic stimulus package, where he spent, I can't remember how much he actually spent, but he spent a lot of money, right? Basically giving people money that they could spend, okay? That would be a discretionary fiscal policy because he specifically chose to pass that bill, or he specifically chose to do that. It wasn't just going to happen, right? He decided to do it, okay? So discretionary fiscal policy requires a bill from Congress or a signature from the president is the way to think about this. The second type, right, which discretionary fiscal policy might be easier to understand when juxtaposed with this one. The second type is what we call automatic stabilizers. Sometimes referred to as economic stabilizers. Okay, and what these are is it's any program that increases spending or decreases taxes automatically during a bust, or decreases spending / increases taxes automatically during a boom. Okay? And so what would be a program that we automatically spend more on during a bust or a recession, and that we automatically spend less on during a boom? Okay? And the easiest example is unemployment benefits. Okay, so we have in the United States, we have unemployment benefits, and I'm willing to bet that we spend more money on this program during a recession than we do during a boom, right? And the reason why is fairly obvious. There's more unemployed people during a bust or a recession, okay? And there's few unemployed people during a boom, okay? Notice that there's no decision that has to be made to increase spending on unemployment benefits during a recession, right? We just do it because there's more people that are unemployed, okay? And it falls, spending on unemployment decreases during a boom because fewer people are unemployed, okay? Food stamps are another great example of this. And we can also think of a progressive income tax as an automatic stabilizer. Okay, so there's two types of fiscal policy. There's discretionary, and then there are automatic stabilizers. Okay, and the effect of this, right, if we engage in expansionary fiscal policy, right, so if we go back to, where did I write it? I think I must have lost it somewhere. Huh, did I lose it? Yep, oh well. Okay, so if we think back to what we were just talking about with running deficits and running surpluses, expansionary fiscal policy is when we run deficits. And contractionary fiscal policy is when we run surpluses. Okay? And so here, if we are in a bust, we want to run deficits. Right? And if we're in a boom, we want to run a surplus. Okay? And the way these work is much more direct than monetary policy. Okay? So if we are in a bust, if we're in a bust, right, the problem is that our short-run equilibrium is to the left of the long-run aggregate supply curve. And so what we have to do is somehow shift that thing to the right. And so if we engage in expansionary fiscal policy, which we can do by either increasing spending or decreasing taxes, aggregate demand will shift out to the right. Okay? And we'll get to our new equilibrium point, right where all three lines cross. And if we're in a boom, the problem is that our short-run equilibrium is to the right of the long-run aggregate supply curve. So we need to reduce aggregate demand. So we can either raise taxes or we can lower spending. Oops. Which will, if I drew it correctly, shift our short-run equilibrium curve over to the left and get us back to a long-run equilibrium. Okay? And so the real idea is that we can do this either through monetary policy or fiscal policy. Okay? And so what we're saying, or what we're talking about here, is just moving the aggregate demand curve as necessary to get us back to a short-run equilibrium that is on the long-run aggregate supply curve, or in other words, get the economy back to long-run macroeconomic equilibrium.